Okay, this isn't going to be a long video today, but I wanted to go ahead and touch on something that's been on my mind for the last couple of weeks. So recently, a guy came out to our place. His name is Luke Abafi, and he was doing some filming here for a video that's going to be released coming up soon on one of his channels, and I'll share that at a later time. He's talking about homesteading. And so when that comes out, I'll share that with you guys. But he asked me a question, and I've been pondering this question for the last, I don't know, since he's been here. And I don't even remember the answer I gave him for the question he asked, but I think he asked a question somewhere along the lines of, what's the best advice you can give for, raising boys? I think that's what, somewhere along those lines, that was the question. And, I don't remember what I gave him for the answer, but I didn't think it was adequate. And so as I've been pondering this, and it's been bugging me for the last couple of weeks or whatever it was since he's been here, I've come up with an answer that I think is absolutely the answer on the best advice I can give dads raising, especially boys, but children in general, just children in general. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. And I'm wearing my, homeschool dad's a real American hero shirt today. Because the reality is public school was an experiment. People think that homeschooling is the experiment. No. That's always been done. Public school is the experiment, and I think that we can safely say that the public school experiment has been a gigantic failure. It's an absolute gigantic, no matter what metric you measure by. It doesn't matter. It's a complete and total colossal failure. The kids can't read. The public schools are spending zillions of dollars on each of these students, and they're not getting the return on investment. We're producing just a poor quality student and graduate. And this is one of the things you see over and over again when you look at the data, and which is why you have so many people who just want the utter and total destruction of the Department of Education. And so, and that's the debate. And now you have such a move out of the public schools into homeschools that the governments are like, we have to maintain some control. We want to make sure that they don't, government bureaucrats hate losing control. And I'm going to get back to my question here in a minute. Just stay tuned. I need to put a foundation here. So many government bureaucrats are trying to rein this in. And they're coming out with things like ESAs, which are basically just government monetary handouts. And the homeschooling community, for the most part, has seen this for what it is, and that's a giant trap. Do not fall for it. It's a scam. You take their money, you're going to wear their brand. And when you let them into that door, so a lot of homeschooling communities and groups are like, don't take the ESA money. We don't need your money. We'd rather have our individuality and liberty and freedom to homeschool how we want to, rather than take your money and then go along with your rules, because all that's going to do is increase over time. Guaranteed. It happens every single time if you know history. So going back to that question, what's the number one piece of advice? And really this would work for anyone, not just homeschooling dads, but any dad, any parent, but especially the dads. There's something about the dads when it comes to this topic. And so the number one piece of advice I can give to any dad out there is to read to your children. Read to your children. This is something that my late wife, she mentioned to me years before she was sick. She said because she encouraged me to do this, and she was part of the Charlotte Mason line of thinking in a lot of ways, not everything, but some things, when it came to home education. And so she had this idea in her brain that, and it proved to be right, even after she passed away, it bared out that, yes, it's true that when dads read to their children, something special happens. There's a connection that happens, and that you're only going to find that when dad actually sits down and reads to his kids. Mom can read to her kids all the time, and a lot of moms do. It's very easy, and it makes sense because dad's out there working. He's out there slaying dragons. He's out there providing for the family. So he has a little bit more limited time, whereas the mom is at home, and she's trying to, raise up the children and manage the home. And she has that time she can carve out that time in her schedule easier than a dad can. But I'm telling you, dads, you need to carve out that time. It could be in the evening. We always did it in the evening. But that was something we put a priority on in our homeschooling growing up days. Now I have a child who's 18. He's graduating this year. He's just finishing up school. He's basically done this year. Got a couple more things to do, but we'll talk more about some of his assignments and what he did in his senior year in another video, because I've done videos before on that and just neat things. But going back to that question, what's the number one advice I can give to dads? Read to your kids. It's so easy. I get a lot of questions. How do I get my kids to read? I'm having such a problem getting my kids to read. I'm not talking really about single parents. I mean, if single moms out there, if you're choosing to homeschool, do what you can. If you can get the dad on board to do this, great. But if you're married and you have dad at home, you need to have dad read to your kids. There's just something special, something that there's a connection that's made that doesn't happen any other way. And if you want to have your children be successful in lots of other things when it comes to parenting and raising your children, I think that's going to be my answer from now on. The number one advice, I think maybe Luke, and I mean he can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I'm assuming he was looking around at some of the plans that we have here in our homestead and how we were, putting things together and how we were having my boys move into certain areas that I have set up for them. And I mean, he's taking over the business, perfectpickler.com. That's going to be his business. I'm helping him now. Right now, it's a part of an American Homestead LLC, but it's going to be his. It's going to be his own entity. And I'm raising him up to take that on. He's 18 right now, but he's going to be taking this on. He's going to be the CEO of this company, and he will decide its future and its trajectory for success. So I think people look at that and like, what are you doing to raise your boys? What's the number one thing you can recommend to I can have some sort of success and influence over my children and their direction in life? And I think the number one piece of advice is read to your kids. That's going to be it. It's that simple. Read to your kids. Dads, read to your kids. Find books that interest them. And a lot of times you'll be reading to them. There was times I was reading and my youngest son, he would be fiddling or he would be just kind of turning over. I'm thinking he's not paying attention. And sometimes I would even get frustrated. But then he would say something because he was listening. Joshua, my oldest, would just sit there and be still and listen and enjoying the story. And my youngest would be flipping up and down and, fiddling with stuff. And I was thinking he wasn't listening, and absolutely he was. He would say something that would resonate with the story and, something pertinent of what's going on in the story. And I'm like, oh, he is paying attention. That's amazing. But he doesn't look like he is. So every child's different. I think at about age 9 and 10 for my youngest, it just flipped. I think because something that my late wife wanted so badly was for her children to be readers. She was an avid reader. She was a bookworm. She was always in the library as a kid, checking out books and reading books. She worked at the library when she was in high school. She loved books. And she wanted her kids to be avid readers. And I was so worried about my youngest because he just wasn't picking it up. And finally, I think I was at, where was I at? I was at the homeschooling conference in St. Louis for the Great Homeschool Conference. And I think it was an onstage thing from either as a Colleen Kessler and Sarah McKenzie. They were doing an onstage duo a couple years back. And my youngest had just started picking up reading and was doing it on his own. He was devouring the Hardy Boys books, and it was just like this huge weight lifted off my shoulder. And the talk that Sarah McKenzie and Colleen Kessler, which are great, by the way. If you're not subscribed to their newsletters, you need to do that. If you're into homeschooling and you're not subscribed to Sarah McKenzie or Colleen Kessler, I think it's Colleen Kessler, you need to be. And I was getting choked up in the audience because I had just overcome this monumental goal in my life to get my kids to be readers. And, my youngest, which I thought was never going to come around, because here he is 10 years old and not really getting into reading, but now finally he was. I was like, man, I've done something horribly wrong. No, that's not true. Your kid, there will be, you stick with it, and your child there will be a switch that flips at some point. And, if you stick with it, get them off these devices, get them off these games, put books in their hands, read to them, Dad, read to them, Dad. And at some point, that switch will flip. And they will start picking up books and going through them. Right now, my son, I've recommended the Louis L'Amour books, and he is just flying through those things, and he loves them. And we've actually gone back and I think watched a couple of the movies, because a lot of those books have been made into movies over the years. Some of the movies were not accurate at all to the books. One was so bad I had to turn it off because there was some inappropriate things in it. But I was like, this, and my kids, my youngest Caleb's like, this is nothing like the book. So Louis L'Amour books, can't recommend them enough. Your boy will love them. But there you go. My number one piece of advice: if you want to set your child off on the correct trajectory in life, dads, the best thing you can do is read to them. What do you think? Leave a comment below. If you like this video, please hit that thumbs up before you go. I really appreciate that, because that lets YouTube know that people watch and enjoy my channel. Also, you can check us out over at perfectpickler.com. This is a vegetable fermentation kit that allows you to make your own home-based probiotics at home. So I'll go ahead and shill that for a second before I go. There's the new recipe book that comes with the value package that you get. Value package comes with enough to do 2 sets of these things at home if you have a wide mouth jar. It's got all kinds of recipes in there, and the recipe booklet, you can buy the recipe booklet by itself if you want to and give that away to your friends. Also, something my boys also watch me do all the time is make tinctures. And I mentioned the other day that these things I think this one was going for like $400, $500, and this one was going for like $2,000, but then over $2,000 for this one. And then someone commented and said, hey, since you did that video, it's gone up to over $2,500. So I don't know if that's true. I haven't taken a screenshot yet of it. But the reason these are so valuable is because of the information contained within. Okay, this is something that was written over 100 years ago. This is how people used to treat their issues when they had issues. Okay, it gives you all these plants, how to identify them, what to use them for. It doesn't tell you how to make tinctures, because any schlub can tell you how to do that. That's easy. It tells you what to do with them and why. Okay, and that's why this information is so valuable. And in fact, if you join my Patreon, I'll give you these books. You can join for as little as $1. $1. If you join at higher levels, I appreciate that. But understand what you're getting here. What I'm holding right here, the ones that are expensive are the 2nd edition. There's an actual 3rd edition. I think these were printed in the 90s. But again, this guy lived 100 years ago, back in the 1800s. So it's out of copyright, out of print now. But the downloads I'm giving you were the 3rd edition, even more updated than these. So you're getting a lot for your buck. And I would give these away for free if I didn't have server space to pay for it. So I gotta pay for the server space. Get these over at patreon.com. Link is in the description below. Again, this is my medicine cabinet. I have a whole tincture library that I'm building, and it's coming from this. There's a lot of great resources out there, guys. Lots of great resources when it comes to tinctures. But in my opinion, those are the best, and the price bears out why they're the best. Join my Patreon, linked in the description below. We got some other things coming out too. Some of my Crockett homesteaders, Crockett level homesteaders, are getting smoked salt in the mail, with also a QR code to download a digital copy of this for free. But all my patrons get the QR code for this for free. So if you join my Patreon, you'll get one of these for free, digital copy. But some of the Crockett levels are getting these too. These are made on the Homestead. Smoked salt. Okay, so there you go. Thanks for staying with me while I shilled some stuff. And this is what makes the Homestead go. And my top advice for dads raising homeschool kids: leave that like and share it on social media. Share it over on Facebook. It really helps spread the word. Love you guys. See you next time at the Homestead. Bye. Have you ever gone to a health food store and seen all those small bottles of probiotics in your cooler section? Man, can they be pricey. Are you really getting all you need to improve your gut health from those expensive bottles? How viable are they? Most of those products claim to give you between 8 and 15 strains of gut-healthy healing bacteria. Think of each strain of bacteria as a different factory in your gut. Each factory is responsible for breaking down that food in its own way. The more factories you have, the more the food is broken down and the easier the food is absorbed and digested by the body. A 2018 study published by the National Library of Medicine shows that one fermented head of cabbage can produce up to 114 strains of beneficial bacteria. That's a lot more food factories than you're getting from that expensive pill bottle. And that's just cabbage. Imagine the probiotics when you add garlic, onions, pepper, and more to that ferment. PerfectPickler.com and its home fermentation kits provide you with everything you need to get started making your own gut-healthy food factories from the comfort of your own kitchen. PerfectPickler.com even provides a jam-packed recipe book with many of our kits. Visit PerfectPickler.com and start fermenting your own veggies to begin your journey to better gut health. That's PerfectPickler.com.
Hey guys, did you know you can become a patron of an American Homestead? They get access to private videos, and we send them gifts from the Homestead that we make here on the Homestead. And we also enter our patrons into special giveaways that are only available to them. And before you go, please check out these other great videos. Go ahead, click. I'll wait.